Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto number 4, Chapter number 13, titled The Descendants of Dhruva Maharaj. Text number 35. Iti vyavasita vipras. Iti vyavasita vipras. Tasya ragna prajataye. Tasya rajna prajataye. Purodasam niravapan. Purodasam niravapan. Sipi vistaya Vishnave. Sipi vistaya Vishnave. Iti vyavasita vipra. Tasya rajna prajataye. Purodasam niravapan. Sipi vistaya Vishnave. Iti vyavasita vipra. Tasya rajna prajataye. Purodasam niravapan. Sipi vistaya Vishnave. Sipi vistaya Vishnave. Vyavasita vipra. Mataji's. Word for word translation. Iti, thus, vyavasitaha, having decided, vipraha, the brahmanas, tasya, his, rajna, of the king, prajataye, for the purpose of getting a son, purodasam, the paraphernalia of sacrifice, niravapan, offered, sipi vistaya, to the Lord, who is situated in the sacrificial fire, Vishnave, to Lord Vishnu. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. Thus, for the sake of a son for King Anga, they decided to offer oblations to Lord Vishnu, who is situated in the hearts of all living entities. Purport. According to sacrificial rituals, animals are sometimes sacrificed in the yajna arena. Such animals are sacrificed not to kill them, but to give them new life. Such action was an experiment to observe whether the Vedic mantras were being properly pronounced. Sometimes small animals are killed in a medical laboratory to investigate therapeutic effects. In a medical clinic, the animals are not revived. But in the yajna arena, when animals were sacrificed, they were again given life by the potency of Vedic mantras. The word Sipi Vistaya appears in this verse. Sipi means the flames of the sacrifice. In the sacrificial fire, if the oblations are offered into the flames, then Lord Vishnu is situated there in the form of the flames. Therefore, Lord Vishnu is known as Sipi Vista. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakso Manitam Yaina Tasmai Shri Gurube Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktarinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So we're continuing our discussion from the 4th canto of Bhagavatam, chapter number 13, titled The Descendants of Dhruva Maharaj. So in the previous chapters we saw the story of Dhruva Maharaj, and at the end of the last chapter we were seeing how the Bhagavatam explains that Narad Muni, who was the spiritual master of Dhruva Maharaj, he was so proud of his disciple Dhruva Maharaj that once he was attending a sacrifice conducted by the Prachetas. And when Narad Muni attended that sacrifice by the Prachetas, in that assembly of great personalities, Narad Muni was glorifying his own disciple, glorifying the bhakti, the devotional service of his disciple Dhruva Maharaj. So this is the Prabhupada explains in his purports that the guru or the spiritual master is always interested to hear from the disciple about how he is making progress in his spiritual life. And when the spiritual master, he sees his disciple taking steps forward, taking more responsibilities, advancing in bhakti, then the spiritual master, he feels very happy, he feels very proud. Prabhupada gives the example, just like a father or a mother, when they see their son growing up or when they see their daughter growing up, then they feel happy. He's growing nicely, she's growing nicely. So in the same way, the spiritual master, the guru, he's like our spiritual father. That's why it's said that whenever we're talking with our spiritual masters or writing letters to them, having darshan with them, one of the things we should talk about is, what service we're doing, what responsibilities we're taking up. And when the guru hears, okay, this disciple of mine, he or she is doing this service, he or she is doing that, he's taking more responsibility, she's taking more responsibility, he's advancing like this, she's advancing like this, then the spiritual master, he feels happy. Okay, this person, he's very nicely situated in bhakti, he's very nicely progressing. And the spiritual master feels a lot of joy and happiness, just like any parent would feel. So much so, Prabhupada explains that the spiritual master, he feels very proud of his disciple. And that's when the blessings of the guru come upon the disciple. When we follow the spiritual master's instructions, when we please them, that is when blessings come. One way, to acquire blessings is you just go up to devotees and ask them, Prabhu, can you please give me blessings? Mataji, can you please give me blessings? And we try to touch their feet or say, please give me blessings, like that. So we can ask like that, but that's not the way real blessings come. Real blessings, according to Shastra, come when we please a devotee of the Lord. When we render some service and we genuinely please another devotee, then that devotee, he feels so happy and he feels so much joy that helplessly he will give his blessings onto us. without even desiring. So that is how real blessings come. So when the Shastras say, we should get the lotus, get the dust from the lotus feet of the devotees, we should get the mercy of the devotees, that doesn't, my Guru Maharaj explained, that doesn't necessarily mean, physically going and trying to somehow, grab devotees' feet and take their dust, or begging devotees, please give me your dust, please give me blessings. Real dust of devotees' feet is attained when we do some service and we genuinely please that devotee. Then Krishna being within the heart, he also becomes pleased, that this other Vaishnava has pleased my devotee by doing this service. And Krishna will give his blessings, and that devotee also, helplessly, he will bestow his blessings upon us. So Dhruva Maharaj, his devotional service was so great that Narad Muni, he was so much proud of his service that Narad Muni, he is going somewhere else to one sacrifice conducted by the Prachetas, and he is remembering his disciple, Dhruva Maharaj, and he's reciting some verses, glorifying the bhakti, glorifying the service of his disciple, Dhruva Maharaj. So that's how the previous chapter ends. Then at the start of this chapter, so again, this is conversation going on between Vidura and Maitreya. So when Maitreya Muni, he hears this, when Vidura, he hears this, Maitreya Muni is speaking and Vidura is hearing. So when Vidura, he hears this, he asks Maitreya Muni, who are these Prachetas? I haven't heard of them before. Can you please tell me something more about these Prachetas, into whose sacrifice Narad Muni went? And Narad Muni was glorifying Dhruva Maharaj. So that was the question at the start of this chapter. But we see here, the title of this chapter is The Descendants of Dhruva Maharaj. So how is it that in response to this question, who is the Prachetas, Maitreya Rishi is just talking about all the descendants of Dhruva Maharaj? How is that answering Vidura's question? Who would like to answer? Yes. So the question was, who are the Prachetas? The Prachetas, actually, they're one of the descendants coming in the line of Dhruva Maharaj. So that's why Maitreya Rishi, before directly talking about the Prachetas, he first lists down all the different descendants of Dhruva Maharaj, leading up to the appearance of the Prachetas. So this is Prabhupada says, this is like the nature of the spiritual master, or the nature of the guru. He'll always give more than what the disciple asks for, or he'll always give more than what we deserve. Because what was the question? Just who are the Prachetas? So he could have directly just started talking about the Prachetas, right? But that's not what we see. Before he talks about the Prachetas, he gives the whole background, history behind all the forefathers of the Prachetas. So he goes, okay, these Prachetas, they come in the line of Dhruva Maharaj. Before I talk about Prachetas, I will give you the whole history of all the descendants coming from Dhruva Maharaj, leading up to the Prachetas. And this goes for, I think, 5, 6, 7 chapters. So 5, 6, 7 chapters just goes on about descendants of Dhruva Maharaj before he actually starts talking about the Prachetas. So Prabhupada says this is the mercy of the Guru. You will just ask one simple question. Not only will the Guru answer that question, but on top of answering that question, he will give so much more. So this is the nature of Vaishnavas, devotees, Prabhupada says. That out of their kind nature, out of the magnanimous nature, they'll always give more than what we deserve. So that's what we're seeing here with Maitreya Rishi. He's so pleased with Vidura's inquisitiveness and his questions. Bhagavatam, if you look at the whole Bhagavatam is full of questions and answers. And our mood or our general conditioning is that the answers that are given in Bhagavatam, that's like the main point. That's where we should focus, all the answers which are given in Bhagavatam. But my Guru Maharaj, he explains that the questions that are asked by different devotees in Bhagavatam, that's just as important as the answers which are given in Bhagavatam. Why? Because when we see or when we read or hear what questions different devotees are asking in Bhagavatam, we get to learn what we should be inquisitive about, what we should be curious about, what are the topics or things we should be interested in and we should be asking questions about. So in this way, we can understand that the questions which are asked in Bhagavatam is just as important as the answers which are given in Bhagavatam. So whenever any devotee asks questions, we should make a note and we should contemplate, what question is he asking, in what mood is he asking, and we can get a lot of realizations, a lot of teachings just from the questions itself. So Maitra Rishi is very pleased with this question by Vidura, and before he just directly goes on and starts talking about Prachetas, he gives the whole background. Because the Prachetas, they come in the dynasty of Dhruva Maharaj. And before the Prachetas come, there is a list of 20, 30, 40 different people, forefathers leading up to the Prachetas. And he gives the whole history. So as he's going down one by one, Dhruva Maharaj's son was Utkala. He was very spiritually inclined. He didn't want to take up the kingdom. He left. Then the other brother became the king. Then his son was that. Then his son was this. Like this he was going. And then in the course of describing the descendants of Dhruva Maharaj, he comes to the story of King Anga. So he's one of the descendants of Dhruva Maharaj. And his story is very unique. While Maitra Rishi is talking about King Anga, he says, okay, there was this great king called Anga. And he had a son called Vena. And this Vena, although the king was so pious and so devoted, so spiritual, this son was a complete, rascal. He used to do so much mischief, and he was so notorious, and that King Anga just got fed up with him and renounced his kingdom and just went to the forest. Not only that, Maitra Rishi explains that this son, King Vena, he then became the king, and later on the sages, by the power of their Brahmanical Tejas, they killed this king called Vena. So as Maitra Rishi is explaining the story of King Anga, how he had this bad son Vena, how he got frustrated, he went to the forest, and then how Vena was later on killed by the Brahmanas. Then Vidura asks two questions. This is a very unique story, and it doesn't fit his intelligence. Because generally, if the parents are good, then the child will also be good. Because according to the consciousness of the parents, they will attract a child of a similar level of consciousness. So Prabhupada explains that the situation of our mind, the situation of where our mind and consciousness is, it actually has a very powerful effect in our activities. So much so that the child we beget, that is based on, our mind, based on our consciousness. So much so that the body we get in our next life is based upon our consciousness at the time of death. So where our mind is, where our consciousness is, has such a big impact on whatever we do in our lives. Same way with food. Prabhupada explains when we take food, not only are we taking physically the food, but we're also taking the consciousness of the person or the persons who have cooked that food. That's why Prabhupada says we shouldn't eat outside. We should cook ourselves, offer to Krishna, and take prasadam in temple or at home. So Prabhupada says, we should stop this. One lecture, Prabhupada says, we should stop this restaurant eating business, going out and eating in restaurants. Why? Because, some devotees, they say, you can order food in a vegetarian restaurant, vegan restaurant, and then, mentally offer to Krishna and then take that as prasad. But they don't understand the people who have cooked that food, what consciousness they have. And when we take that food in restaurants, we'll get that consciousness, the negative consciousness of the karmis. So again, as Prabhupada explains, consciousness has such a big effect that based on consciousness, you will attract one particular soul as your son or daughter. Based on consciousness, your next body is determined. So when we take food cooked by karmis or non-devotees, all that, negative consciousness of karmis, that actually we imbibe. Second point is, technically we can't offer that plate of food we get in a restaurant, because in all restaurants, as we all know, the cooks, they will taste what they cook, right? So then it's muchi. How can you offer Krishna something? How can we offer Krishna something which is tasted by others? So in that sense also it's not good. So okay, in worst case scenario, emergency situation, okay, we can eat. Otherwise, as much as possible, Prabhupada says we should avoid eating outside. So this is the nature of consciousness. So Vidura, he asked this question, that King Anga, he was a pure devotee of the Lord. He was such a nice, pious king, devoted king. So naturally it would be expected that he would attract a very nice child. He would have a very nice, devoted son or daughter. So how did he get such a crazy son like King Vena, who was like a complete demon? So that was his first question. Second question he asked, who can remember the second question Vidura asked Maitreya regarding King Anga and Vena? Yeah, that was first question. Second question. Okay, second thing he asked. So remember, the questions that are asked in Bhagavatam are just as important as the answers given in Bhagavatam. So the second question Vidura asked is, the second thing that doesn't fit his intelligence is that generally sages, they're supposed to be very compassionate. They're supposed to be very tolerant. They're supposed to be sadhu, very peaceful, calm, not get angry, not curse anyone. And secondly, the king, he is known as Narayan. The king is known as the representative of the Supreme Personality Godhead. And he said that even though the king might have some faults, might do some things wrong, still the citizens, they should never go against the king. The citizens, they should overlook whatever faults the king might have and see him as the representative of the Supreme Personality Godhead. In this way, the king was worshipped in Vedic culture. So this is the scenario. So Vidura is asking that generally the king is supposed to be so respected, he's supposed to be worshipped as, the Supreme Lord himself. Whatever faults he might have, he should be overlooked and one should worship him as if he's Narayan himself. And on the other hand, sages, they're supposed to be very kind, merciful. They're not supposed to get angry. They're supposed to be very tolerant. So how is it that the sages, they killed this king by the power of their mantra chanting, by the power of their curse? The sages, they should have been tolerant, right? The sages, they should have been kind, compassionate. And secondly, okay, they could have killed any demon, but out of everyone, why did they kill the king? The king is Narayan. So these two things didn't match, Vidura's intelligence. How can a king be killed? And secondly, out of all the people, the sages, they killed the king. Sages are supposed to be very kind and tolerant. So that's the second question this Vidura asked Maitreya Rishi. So these are the two questions they've asked. In response to this, now Maitreya Rishi is giving the whole background behind King Anga. So King Anga, once upon a time, he was doing a sacrifice. Actually, before Maitreya Rishi starts answering, Vidura, he speaks one verse in which he says, he first asks his questions, and then in one verse he explains to Maitreya Rishi that, please answer these questions. Why? Because I'm your very devoted and surrendered servant. I'm a very devoted and surrendered disciple of yours. And in the purport, Prabhupada explains that the guru or the spiritual master will only be inclined to reveal all the secrets of transcendental science only if we are surrendered and only if we are submissive. If the guru or the spiritual master, if the devotee or the mentor, if they don't see us being devoted, if they don't see us being surrendered, if they don't see us being submissive, then they will lose inspiration to instruct us. They won't feel inclined to reveal more and more about how we can advance and how we can progress in spiritual life. So Vidura, after asking these questions, he tells Maitreya Rishi that I'm fully surrendered unto you. I am your submissive servant. Whatever you say, I will do. So because I have this mood, because I am so devoted to you, because I am so surrendered unto you, you please answer my questions. So Prabhupada says this is the only way we can get mercy from the spiritual master. In third canto, in one purport, Prabhupada, on this similar point, Prabhupada mentions something very nice. In one purport in third canto, Prabhupada explains how we can make spiritual advancement 10 times faster. Just like you'll see, videos on YouTube, how to make money, 10 times faster, how to become a millionaire in this many days, how to do this in 10 days, how to do that quickly. So in one purport in third canto, Prabhupada, he explains how we can make spiritual advancement at 10 times the speed. So the secret is, Prabhupada explains, this is in relation to the story of Lord Brahma and Swayambhuva Manu. So if you remember in third canto, the process of creation is explained. Like in Bhagavatam, there's 10 topics, right? Atra, Sarga, Visargascha, Stanam, Posanam, Uttaya. So the first two topics of Bhagavatam is Sarga and Visarga. Primary creation, secondary creation. So primary creation, secondary creation, that's discussed in the first few cantos. Canto 1, Canto 2, Canto 3, Canto 4. So that is to do with the primary and secondary creation. Canto 1 and 2, that's to do with primary creation. Canto 3 and 4, that's to do with secondary creation. What's primary creation? Primary creation is the creation done by Vishnu, how Vishnu creates this universe. What's secondary creation? Secondary creation is the creation done by Brahma. Who are the descendants of Brahma? Who are the sons of Brahma? Who are the sons of Brahma? Like this. So that's why we're in fourth canto and we're hearing about the descendants of Dhruva Maharaj, who's one of the descendants of Manu, who is the son of Brahma. So that's why we'll see in third canto, fourth canto, all different dynasties, coming from one of Brahma's sons. Because third and fourth canto, they're supposed to talk about secondary creation. So in third canto, Bhagavatam explains about how Lord Brahma, he first had 4 Kumaras as his children, and he asked 4 Kumaras to help him, increase the population of the universe. And the 4 Kumaras, they said, no, sorry Dad, we can't do this. We want to live simple life and we just want to fully focus on devotional service. We're not going to get married. Then Brahma, he got angry. And then from his anger, Lord Shiva came, or Rudra came. Then it's mentioned that from Lord Brahma came Swayambhuva Manu. And before that, Rudra came, and Lord Brahma, he asked Rudra, okay, now you populate, but he did populate, but the certain living entities he was creating, they're all like, they started destroying the whole universe. So then Lord Brahma, he told Lord Shiva, okay, you can stop populating the universe, you can go to the forest and just meditate, meditate on Vishnu. When the time for annihilation comes, at that time I'll call you. That time you and your descendants can come and destroy the universe. For now, just go to the forest and, meditate. So that also didn't work. First he tried 4 Kumaras, didn't work. Then Rudra came. That also plan didn't work. Then finally Swayambhuva Manu, he came, along with his wife Satarupa. And at that time, Swayambhuva Manu, he very humbly, he comes and approaches Lord Brahma and he tells him, my dear Lord, you are my father, you are my master. Please instruct me. Tell me what I can do for you. Please order me. Whatever you order, I will do. At that time, Brahma, he becomes so pleased. And remember, we're saying blessings come when we please a Vaishnava. So at that time, Lord Brahma, he becomes so pleased, and then he glorifies Swayambhuva Manu. That this is the fit way for a son to approach, his father. This is how a disciple is supposed to get blessings from his guru. So that time Brahma, he becomes so pleased with Swayambhuva Manu's surrender and his devotion and his submissiveness. In that purport, in that section, Prabhupada explains that when the spiritual master or when a devotee of the Lord, he sees his disciple being very, very eager to take instructions, being very, very inquisitive, and being very, very submissive, devoted, and being so surrendered that whatever instructions he'll get, he will fully carry out, at that time the spiritual master becomes 10 times more eager to give spiritual instructions in how to advance in spiritual life. So Prabhupada explains this is the secret to advancing. That if we have the right attitude of being fully surrendered, of being very submissive, of being very eager to take instructions, carry it out, then the guru or the devotee whom we are under, seeing our surrender, they'll feel inspired, right? That, wow, this person, whatever I ask, he always does. Whatever I ask, she always does. Then they'll feel more inspired to give more instructions and to give more guidance into how we can further advance. So much so, Prabhupada explains that the guru will become 10 times more eager to instruct that disciple, and by instructing him or her, giving more and more instructions, that person will advance more and more quicker. On the other side, there will be other disciples whom, whenever any instructions come, they become a bit hesitant, they're not so surrendered, they're not so submissive. So then naturally the spiritual master will hold back. He won't or she won't give so many instructions. He will think, 100 times before saying anything to them. And he won't reveal his heart. He won't be so inspired to give so much guidance. So this Prabhupada explains is how we can advance in spiritual life with 10 times the speed by being fully surrendered and being ready and being eager to take instructions and carrying them out. Then naturally the person whom we're under, they'll feel inspired to give more instructions. And by getting more instructions, we'll get more advancement. Then we'll get more instructions, then we'll make more advancement. On the other side, the other devotees who not so surrendered, they won't get so many instructions, so they will just stay where they are, or they'll just slowly progress. So Vidura, he had this attitude of an ideal disciple. And he explained this to Maitreya Rishi, that I'm a fully surrendered devotee, I'm a fully surrendered servant. So therefore, please answer my questions, because I'm fully sold out to you. So Prabhupada, he also quotes one verse from Gita, that to make advancement, we need to do 3 things. One is service, second one is inquiry, and third one is submissiveness. If we have these 3 things, we can make advancement in spiritual life. So these 3 things, Prabhupada says, we can learn from the famous verse in Bhagavad Gita. Tadvidi pranipatena prashnena seva upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattva darshana. So first is, before we can ask questions, we need to be submissive. Unless we're submissive and devoted and surrendered, why will the guru feel inspired to answer our questions? So first there must be submissiveness. Then there must be service. So when we're submissive and we're rendering service onto a particular devotee, then naturally they'll be sold out. They'll feel obliged that this person is so submissive, this person, he's doing so much service for me. I have to help him somehow. I have to do something in return. I have to reciprocate. So naturally they will give blessings. Naturally they will help us progress in our spiritual life. So first comes submission and service, then comes inquiry. Otherwise, if we directly go to inquiry, we won't get the full benefit. So in this way, we're come to this section where now we're hearing the background of King Anga in response to Vidura's question. So Anga, Maitreya Rishi explains, once he was doing a Asvamedha sacrifice, which is a horse sacrifice. And during that sacrifice, the Brahmanas, he has engaged so many Brahmanas doing the sacrifice, and everything is going nicely, but the devatas, they're not coming and accepting the offerings. So King Anga asked the Brahmanas that what's happening, how come the sacrifice not working out? And the Brahmana says that we're doing everything nicely, we're doing everything properly, we're chanting the mantras properly, everything is going nice. Then the king says, if you're doing everything nicely and still the devatas are not coming, then the cause of this must be that definitely I must have done something wrong. Definitely I must have committed some offense. So this is called intelligence. We'll see this time and again in Bhagavatam. Whenever any great personality, when they come across any challenge in their spiritual life or even in their material life, whenever there is any difficulty in their life, we will see they won't blame anyone else. They won't blame the situation. They won't blame this person, that person. They won't blame the environment. They won't blame the demigods. The first thing they will come to conclusion is, definitely I must have done something wrong. Definitely I must have committed some offense, due to which I am getting this difficulty in my life. So this, according to Shastra, is spiritual intelligence. Same thing we'll see time and again in Bhagavatam. Like one classic story comes to mind is in ninth canto of Bhagavatam. There was once a king. He was going for a walk. He was going for a bushwalk with his entourage, and his daughter was also there. And they were just walking in the forest. And as they're going through the forest, traveling, they experience some bodily difficulty. They feel, I think Bhagavatam explains, they all start feeling constipation. And they can't pass stool or urine, and they have a very, uncomfortable bodily situation. Then the king immediately, he doesn't blame this person, that person, he doesn't blame the cooks. Oh, you must have cooked something bad, food poisoning. He doesn't blame anyone. Immediately, he asks around. Immediately, he comes to the conclusion that we're going through this difficulty at the moment. Why? Because definitely one of us must have insulted or caused some kind of offense to another living entity, or caused some kind of offense to a saintly person. Otherwise, how can we suddenly undergo through this difficulty? So then the king immediately looks at all of his soldiers, his ministers, and he asks, have any of you done anything wrong? Have any of you insulted anyone, hurt anyone, caused any offense or pride against anyone? Unless one of us committed an offense, how can we be going through this difficulty? Definitely, one of us must have done something wrong. So this Prabhupada explains, this is spiritual intelligence. That whenever any difficulty comes in our life, instead of blaming other people, instead of blaming the situation, blaming the environment, we should understand this difficulty is coming because definitely I must have done something wrong. I must have committed some offense against someone or some person, due to which I am getting this as a reaction. So the king asks around, and the soldiers, the ministers, they say, no, we haven't done anything wrong. We're just doing, a normal duty. And then the princess, she puts her hand up and she says, actually, I think I did something wrong. What? They were going through the forest, and there was like a hole in a tree or on the ground. And in that hole, there was some kind of insect or a bug that was glowing, giving off some kind of effulgence. And out of curiosity, this princess, she goes to that hole, and she sees, oh, some nice, cute little, glowing object in that hole. And then she just puts her finger, out of curiosity, she just puts her finger into that hole and pokes that particular living entity. And when she pokes that particular living entity, blood starts coming out. So then she tells this to the king, that this is what I did. There was this little creature, I poked my finger and that blood started coming out. And then the king immediately understands. And as the pastime goes, what happens? That particular area of the forest in which they were in, that area, there was a great sage living called Chavanya Rishi. And this Chavanya Rishi, for one reason or another, he had disguised himself as a bug, and he was sitting in that hole. So when this princess, she poked that bug, she actually committed offense against this Rishi called Chavanya Rishi. And due to that offense, the king and all the soldiers, ministers, they were undergoing constipation, bodily difficulties. So like this we'll see in Bhagavatam time and again. Whenever any great personality, whenever they undergo through any difficulty, material difficulty, spiritual difficulty, immediately they come to the conclusion, definitely I must have committed some offense. Definitely I must have done some sinful thing, due to which this difficulty is coming upon me. Another famous example is of Rupa Goswami. He's in meditation, he's seeing Krishna in Vrindavan, but then suddenly that vision goes away. Immediately he comes to the conclusion, because that vision has gone away, definitely I must have unknowingly committed some kind of offense. So that's what we're saying with King Anga. He is also a very intelligent personality. He sees that the sacrifice is going on, the desired result is not coming. Immediately he comes to the conclusion, we're not getting the desired result. Why? Because definitely I must have committed some offense. He doesn't blame the Brahmanas, that one of you Brahmanas you must have done something wrong, or you're not chanting the mantras properly. No, immediately he points the finger at himself. And he tells the Brahmana, definitely I must have committed some kind of offense. I must have done something wrong due to which this is not happening. So then he asks the Brahmanas, what is it that I have done wrong? Then what do the Brahmanas respond? They say, my dear Lord, you are such a great personality, you are such a great devotee of the Lord. In this lifetime, what to speak of physically doing anything wrong, even in your mind you haven't committed any offense. So this is how pure King Anga was. That even in his mind, in his whole life, he hadn't committed even a single offense. He was so pure. It is given in previous ages that generally when we do any action, we will get some reaction, we will get some karma. But if we think something bad in our mind, generally we don't get karma. That's there for Kali Yuga. But it's given in previous ages, if someone thinks something bad, that I don't like this person, and in the mind we just, speak something ill about another person, or think something bad against someone else, then we will get negative karma. So that was the case in previous ages. If even mentally we think something bad, we will get karma for that, we will get reaction. But that's not the case in Kali Yuga. Bhagavatam explains in Kali Yuga, because Krishna, he understands, we're so weak-minded, we're so fallen, Krishna has given us this concession, that only physically you do something bad, you will get karma. Don't worry, if you mentally do, I will overlook. That doesn't mean, okay, in our mind we, space out and do, because what's in the mind will sooner or later will come out through words or actions. So we have to be careful, we have to maintain internal purity, but that concession is there in Kali Yuga, that anything mentally we do, we won't get the karma for that. On the other hand, Bhagavatam explains, if just mentally we do any devotional act, we will get the benefit. So if just mentally we think, doing deity worship, mentally we think of singing, mentally we think of, doing some particular seva for Radha Gopinath, and although we're not physically doing it, but just in our mind we're doing a particular seva, thinking of Krishna, Krishna, he notices that, and Krishna will give us spiritual credits. Krishna will give us blessings. So that's pretty cool, right? That mentally, if somehow due to conditioning we might think something bad, Krishna won't, hold us guilty for that. He will overlook that. On the other side, anything devotional we think in our mind, Krishna will give us full blessings. He will give us full credit, although we might not physically do it. So that's how kind and merciful Krishna is. He understands our fallen situation and he gives all concessions in Kali Yuga. So these Brahmanas, they explained to King Anga that in this life, even mentally, you haven't committed any offense. But in your previous life, you did something wrong. And as a reaction of that particular action you did in your past life, in this life, that's why the demigods aren't coming and attending the sacrifice, due to that sinful thing you did in one of your previous lives. But they explained to King Anga that don't worry, we will, Vishnu, he's very kind, he's very merciful. We will, if we pray to Vishnu and if we please him, then by offering oblations to Vishnu, by conducting a sacrifice, we can get a son for you. And when Vishnu comes, all the demigods, they'll be obliged to also come and attend the sacrifice. So that's how we come to today's verse. Thus, for the sake of a son for King Anga, they decided to offer oblations to Lord Vishnu, who is situated in the hearts of all living entities. So in the purport, Prabhupada, he talks a bit about animal sacrifices. In previous ages, they used to sacrifice animals. So what was the purpose behind these sacrifices? Prabhupada explains, sacrificing animals, that was like a way of doing quality control. And Prabhupada gives the example, just like in modern day, before any company, different companies, they will produce different products. And before they put that product out in the market, they have to test whether the product works. They have to do quality control. So how to test it? They will use animals. They will, get some animals and test the products out on animals. And then if the product works on animals, then they say, okay, this product works, and then they'll put it on the market for humans to use. So Prabhupada explains, this is the similar kind of thinking behind sacrificing animals in Vedic culture. But Prabhupada says there's a difference. These animals that people, scientists in our modern day civilization, they use to test the products of different companies, these animals, they're killed in the labs of these scientists. But the animals which were sacrificed in Vedic culture, they weren't killed, but rather they were given a brand new life. And what was the test in these sacrifices? They would sacrifice an animal to check whether the brahmanas are properly chanting the mantras. Because the whole outcome of the sacrifice is dependent on the purity of the brahmanas. If the brahmanas aren't pure, if the brahmanas aren't properly chanting the mantras, then the sacrifice will fail. So how to check the quality of the brahmanas chanting? They would get an animal and they would sacrifice the animal, and then they would ask the brahmanas, okay, using your mantra power, using your purity of mantra chanting, revive this animal back. Then the brahmana would chant some mantras, the animal would revive back. Then when the animal is revived back, given a brand new body, then everyone will understand, okay, because the brahmana, by chanting his mantras, he was able to revive this animal back to life, give him a new body. This brahmana is pure. This brahmana's mantra chanting is good. So therefore everything is going nicely in the sacrifice. This sacrifice will be successful. If the brahmana is unable to revive the animal back, then everyone understands, okay, something is going wrong with this brahmana's mantra chanting, with this brahmana's purity. Then they understand that something needs to be done. So this was like the quality control procedure Prabhupada explains in sacrifice in Vedic culture. To check whether the brahmanas are pure, to check whether the brahmanas are properly chanting mantras, animal sacrifice was used. But unlike modern day scientists who will test things on animals and then kill them in the labs, Prabhupada explains, these animals weren't killed, but rather they were given a brand new life. And Prabhupada also explains that during this animal sacrifices, only, like one animal would be killed. Like horse sacrifice, they would get one horse. Cow sacrifice, one cow, like that. Prabhupada says they didn't used to get, have a whole big, huge warehouse, with thousands and thousands of animals and just mercilessly slaughter them. So, in this way, Prabhupada explains the theory or the thinking behind animal sacrifices. And in other purports, Prabhupada would quote one famous verse from Shastra, Asvavedam Gavalambam. In that verse, I forgot where this verse comes, but Mahaprabhu quotes it in Chaitanya Charitamrita. In this verse, it explains that in Kali Yuga, I think there's 4 or 5 things which are forbidden in Kali Yuga. One is horse sacrifice, cow sacrifice. Another one is taking sannyas. Another one is, offering meat or flesh of animals to the forefathers. And the 5th one is begetting a son. Getting a son begotten by one's brother. Is that right? Yes. So generally, in Vedic culture, we'll see if a particular male person, if he's unable, if he's impotent and he can't beget a child through his wife, then the concession was given that he can ask his brother to beget a child through his wife. That's why we see in Mahabharata with, who is that again? With Vyasadeva. So Vyasadeva was called to beget children actually, because Vichitra, Virya and Pandu, they couldn't, actually no, because who was that king who was important? He couldn't. Can you say again? Vichitra, Virya. So that was a concession given in previous ages. So these 5 things are forbidden. Why? Because in today's age, there's no pure brahmanas who can properly chant mantras. So that's why it's given in Kali Yuga. We can't do any animal sacrifices. This whole business animal sacrifice was only there in previous yugas. Also, sannyas is given as one of the things which is forbidden in Kali Yuga. So how to understand this? Because in ISKCON we have so many sannyasis, right? And Mahaprabhu, he himself took sannyas. So Prabhupada explains when Shastra says sannyas is forbidden in Kali Yuga, this refers to not Vaishnava sannyas, but this refers to the sannyas of Mayavadis or karma sannyas. Like in India, you see many people, they'll wear, the dress of a sannyasi or a sadhu, they wear saffron, but they'll just use that not for the sake of preaching, not for the sake of glorifying the Supreme Lord, but just as a means of filling their belly, basically. Just as a mean of getting money from people and getting food on the plate. So that's what's forbidden, because, Shastra, they can see in future how people, they will have so much cheating mentality, truthfulness will go away, people will cheat the innocent public. So that's why Shastra say, okay, in Kali Yuga, sannyas is forbidden. So these cheaters won't come up in our society, who will just take up the dress of saffron of a sannyasi and then cheat the innocent public simply for their own needs. So when Shastra says sannyas is forbidden, this refers to karma sannyas or Mayavadi sannyas, not Vaishnava sannyas. Otherwise, why would Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna himself, who himself is the author of the Shastras, why would he himself take sannyas? Okay, so that's it for today. Any questions, comments by anyone? Yes. So question is how to cultivate submissiveness. Okay. So yes, submissiveness in one purport actually in CC, Prabhupada explains, to the degree we are submissive, to that degree we will make spiritual advancement. So it's very important, but how to do it? Because we have our own desires, right? We have our own likes and dislikes. So how to fully surrender and just be submissive, to whoever is our authority. So again, we need to pray to Radha Gopinath to give us that, it requires a lot of spiritual willpower, to let go of our own desires and to just fully surrender and be submissive. So on our own strength, we cannot do it. Definitely, we need empowerment from the Lord. And my Guru Maharaj especially says that whenever we are noticing any weakness in our heart to do anything, we should get spiritual strength from Lord Balaram or Lord Nityananda Prabhu, who is Lord Balaram himself. So every day we should come and pray to Lord Balaram or pray to Nityananda Prabhu that please, I want to be submissive, I want to be more surrendered to my authority, but I'm struggling, I have my own desires, I'm struggling to be fully submissive, please give me strength, so I can ignore my mind and be more surrendered and be more submissive. Then Lord Balaram, Lord Nityananda Prabhu will give us that inner strength, that spiritual strength to do the right thing, to follow the instructions of our authorities. So yes, we need to pray for the blessings of Lord Balaram, of Lord Nityananda Prabhu. Okay. Ishwar Prabhu, you had a question? Yeah. Okay, I guess different sections, different things are mentioned. In today's purport, Prabhupada is saying that the animals, they were revived back to life. Other sections, maybe it's mentioned they get human body. I'm not sure about the details. But the principle is they were given a higher birth. Okay. Yes. Okay, so why do we need to check the quality of the Brahmanas chanting? Because if the quality is not there, the desired result won't be there. Just like with our own chanting, we also chant mantras, right? We chant Hare Krishna mantra. So there needs to be a particular level of quality to our chanting, right? To the degree we chant good quality japa, to that degree we will advance in spiritual life. Like we, every day in the morning, right, we chant that, what's it called? Bahu Janma Kari Adi Shavana Kirtana. That one can go on chanting mantra lifetime after lifetime. But if his quality of chanting is not good, he won't get Krishna Prem, even after chanting for many, many lifetimes. So that's why quality is important. If there's no good quality, then the desired result won't come actually. So same thing with our own chanting. Just like these Brahmanas, they have their quality control by which they can check, the power of their mantra chanting. Same way we also have our own quality control. So if we're chanting Hare Krishna, my Guru Maharaj explains that if we're doing devotional service and we're not feeling happy and blissful, not feeling ecstatic, then we should understand we're doing something wrong. And whenever any difficulties come in our spiritual life, whenever we're not feeling the bliss, we're not feeling the happiness, my Guru Maharaj says, safest thing to do is to blame our own chanting. Safest thing to do is to think, this problem is happening, I'm not feeling happy this way, I'm going through this difficulty, I'm not feeling ecstasy. Why? Because I'm not chanting good attentive japa. Because of my inattentive chanting, this problem is coming. Because of my inattentive chanting, this other problem is coming. So then we should push ourselves to chant better quality rounds. Chanting Hare Krishna, Prabhupada says, 90% of our spiritual advancement comes from chanting our japa. 90% on one occasion, Prabhupada says. So if we're intelligent, when it's time to chant our rounds, we should really focus. And my Guru Maharaj says, any service we do, all our services, they actually expand from our chanting, from our japa. So to the degree we chant nice japa, to that degree, we will be empowered to do nice service, actually. So if we're having any difficulties in our service, then we should immediately blame our chanting. That, okay, because I'm not doing good quality mantra chanting, that's why I'm having this difficulty in this service, actually. Okay. Yes, Ru. Yes, so Prabhu is saying, he's quoting one verse from CC, famous verse which says that three things one must get, some or other. One is the dust of the devotees, another is the remnants of a devotee, third one is the water that has washed devotees' lotus feet. So yes, definitely we must do all of these three things. Whenever any opportunity comes, we should go for it. So my Guru Maharaj says, all these anathas like greed, lust, anger, they can all be spiritualized. So greed can also be spiritualized. So he says in bhakti, we should also be greedy. We should be greedy for mercy. So whenever any Maharajas come, if we get to serve them, get to cook for them, serve them food, then when the remnants come out, we should greedily take those remnants and honor them. By honoring the remnants, we will make spiritual advancement. And if some or other we have the fortune of somehow getting their dust, we should go for it, But my point was that, what I was mentioning, that it's the real, heartfelt blessings of the Vaishnava. Obviously, we can get through that way, but the real full blessings of the Vaishnava come when we do some service onto them, and they become pleased by the service. And that is how real, the full-fledged, like flood of mercy comes actually. Just like with Srila Prabhupada, he just got few instructions from his spiritual master, and he was so sincerely trying to fulfill that, he got the full empowerment of his spiritual master, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Otherwise, we can just, just go for the remnants or just try to sneakily take dust here and there. But in our own spiritual life, we can just, just do whatever we want, just do all nonsense, So we have to do both, okay? When opportunity is there to physically get dust from a devotee or to physically take the remnants of a devotee, okay, we go for it. But at the same time, we need to also serve other devotees and see the mood, carry out the instructions. And when we genuinely please another Vaishnava, that's when the full mercy actually comes. That's what we see throughout the whole Bhagavatam. That different devotees, they will be pleasing other Vaishnavas, and that's how they get empowered actually. Okay, so both we have to do. Okay. Okay, we'll stop here. Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Jaguru Srila Prabhupada ki jai, entire Gaur Premanande.